Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. I thought I'd create this video for you to help share a few ideas of how to get some PR for startup businesses, especially if you're on a budget. So just so you know in advance, so all of this is obviously going to be very broad information. Keep in mind that every single business is unique and everyone has different needs. And I'm tailoring it towards the health and wellness sort of business. So gyms, nutritionists, naturopaths, physios, things like that. So just feel free to tailor this information to suit your needs. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at brittany@bennettpr.com.au. So by way of introduction, I own Bennett PR. It's a PR agency here in Sydney, and we specialize in health and wellness brands. So some of the brands we work with are the likes of the franchise business 12 Round Fitness. We have Flow Athletic. We have worked with Jessica Seipel, Sam Wood, Aussie Sprouts in the food space. We've worked on the launch of a celiac beer, protein companies, including Body Science and Bulk Nutrients and Nuzest. And we do a whole bunch of things in that space. So not only do we work with experts, but we also work with product placement and big brands and supermarket brands and things like that. But we have found that a lot of the, especially personal trainers who we work with, you know, they're up and coming, and we thought we would give you guys a little bit of information in terms of how to boost your message and be seen by a wider audience while you're on a budget. So in addition to Bennett PR, I also own the Expert Hub, which is an online platform that connects experts with journalists for a fraction of the price of a PR campaign. And that's, that's basically what I do. So thought I should give you my credentials before I get into it so you know why I should be speaking to you. So anyway, where I'm going to start is when it comes to PR, I think a lot of people, they get like a little bit worried that they haven't been featured before, or maybe they don't have the biggest audience on Instagram. Believe it or not, getting media coverage has absolutely nothing to do with any of that. Most journalists, unless they're writing a puff piece on one of the more entertainment sort of websites, they do not care if you've got 100,000 followers on social media. They don't care if you've been featured before. You don't even need to be a good writer. You just need to know your stuff. So if you have something interesting to say or a better way of doing something, you're great for PR. Like, there's no reason why you wouldn't be. So basically today I'm going to talk you through the basics, not the basics, but my top 5 strategies, and also why you might want to get some media coverage on your business. But first I'm going to start with the basics of what actually is PR, because a lot of people actually have no idea. So basically, in a nutshell, you can think of PR as word of mouth on a far larger scale. So the objective is to get news about your business or your key message to the consumer, but you want to get it through you want a third party talking about you. So a journalist or an influencer or a key opinion leader or an expert, because that's giving you credibility. So basically, it's the practice of managing the flow of information from the business to the public, but through a credible third party. So think of if your friend has told you about this amazing new restaurant she went to, you're more likely to listen to her and potentially go, because you may trust her judgment and you may like similar things. You also may know absolutely that you don't want to go anywhere this person recommends. But basically, that's the power of PR, because we all know that if someone who you value and someone who you trust tells you to do something, you're more likely to listen to it. But with a journalist, the difference with the journalist and a friend is the journalist has the capacity to reach far more people at one time. And if you don't pay to be featured, in which case it's called editorial, in that the journalist or the publication is featuring you because they believe in you, then that's quite powerful, because people can see that this isn't an ad. You didn't pay to be there. You've actually been featured based on the merits of your idea. So that's why PR is so powerful. It's also very good with media coverage wise, because what you would either you pitch to the journalist yourself, or what you would pay a publicist is a lot less than what you would pay to be featured in an ad. Having said that, you shouldn't discount advertising, because there's certain things that you might want to share that aren't really PR worthy, but you want to get in front of those people. So advertising is absolutely fine too. So let's get started. I'm going to tell you about my first strategy, and that is trial and reviews. The reason I like trial and reviews is because unlike advertising, most editorial articles don't have a lot of product placement or branding in them because that seemed to be an ad. Instead, like the journalists, they might get you to comment on your top health tips and weave in your business that way, or they'll talk about how to make an amazing protein powder smoothie and weave your protein brand in that way, for example. But a trial and review is the exception, because a trial and review is essentially a journalist coming to your place of work or trying your product and reviewing it and giving an honest account to their audience. It's a really, really powerful piece of coverage because the coverage is all about you and it's someone's first-hand opinion who have tried your business, and that seemed to be quite persuasive. So if you own a gym or a studio, it's one of the best types of coverage you can get, other than obviously being in the fitness magazines such as Men's Health and Women's Health and the like. The sorts of publications that run trial and reviews are the likes of the Urban List, Broadsheet, Eat, Drink, Play, Concrete Playground, sometimes Sport Lux runs them, Body and Soul sometimes runs them. And these are all really good publications to be featured in because their readers are actively looking for things to do. So if you're trying to encourage them to do something and they're reading a publication that tells them what they can be doing, it just kind of makes sense that you'd want to be there. So the best way to get these types of publications is by reaching out to the writers or getting your publicist to reach out to the writer, either by email or Instagram. Phone calls are very annoying for journalists because they write for a living. But contact them and invite them in. Do not charge them, because keep in mind that some publications cost they would charge between $2,000 and $20,000 for an ad. So if you are hoping to get an article, the least you can do is offer for them to come in and try your workout or your nutrition program or your beauty treatment or whatever it is for free. Try and be as convenient as possible with them in regards to the time. So if you have a specific time, just say it all in the first email, because if there's too much back and forth, they're going to get annoyed and you're going to lose the opportunity. So if there's only one time, just write to them and say, can you do this? These are the times. If it's flexible, like you own a studio and they can come in whenever they want, just be as flexible as possible. Just say, here's the timetable, just let me know when to book you in. So to get the most out of this opportunity, I would suggest the following. When you reach out to them, obviously I've already said make it easy for them to book in, but in your initial pitch, tell them any key points of difference that you might have, because that way they can be aware of it for when they come in and try it, and it may also be the catalyst for a better story on you. So for example, if you're a yoga class but you specialize in hip hop or silent headphones or something like that, make sure you include that in the initial pitch, because that's going to be one of the potential angles that will get them excited to write a bigger feature story on you. The second tip is try to be there when they're there, or have one of your best staff members there, because you want someone who can answer questions. You want someone who will be really well represented to your brand, and you also kind of want to be able to show them around and be excited about it and talk it up because you're excited. If there's any chances or opportunities to kind of make them feel like they're part of the community, that's also a really good way of going about it too. Because if you can make someone feel welcomed and like they're a part of the community, you're more likely to get a more heartfelt story and a more engaging story for readers. Now, keep in mind that a journalist does not owe you an article, even if you give them a free workout or a free product or a free trial. They generally won't accept it unless they're planning about writing it, but they don't owe it to you. So when you write to them and say, look, I'd love to invite you in to see what we do. If you like it, please feel free to share it to your audience, but be subtle about it. More invite them as an invitation. Then what I would do is the day after they come in or later that day, I would write to them and say, thank you so much for coming. I hope you really enjoyed yourself. Please let me know if you need any information from me. I've included some story ideas below. And I just do it really subtly that way. Most of them will write something about you if they accepted the offer, but in some cases, like for example, if you invite Women's Health or someone like that in there, it's worth getting them in there anyway, even if they're not going to use you immediately, because the thing is, down the track they may have another opportunity that's perfect for you, and that may be the opportunity that gets you a good story or a bigger story. You're better off being known. The thing about PR is it's about building relationships, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get the hit. Like, it's a bit like dating, you know, like you don't propose marriage on the first date, you know. So I would, of course, invite people in. Don't expect it, like you'd hope for something in return, but don't expect it. But most of them will do it. So the benefit of a trial and review is that it's often very brand focused, but it also gives readers an honest account of what to expect, which is very powerful. There's a lot of competition in the fitness and wellness industry, especially in Australia. So a sort of in-depth review on your business is a really good thing to get in terms of helping you stand out from the crowd. So in addition to the What's On press, the lifestyle press such as Body and Soul, Women's and Men's Health, and Sport Likes and the like also sometimes run reviews. But as I said before, they may also not do a review because that's not really their style, but they may use you as an expert voice in a piece a little bit later on. So they're definitely worth inviting in. Again, PR is about relationships, and like in dating, sometimes you need to play the long game. So my next strategy is share your story or someone else's. So as Tyrion Lannister implied at the end of Game of Thrones, humans love a good story, and to be honest, he is not wrong. In fact, storytelling is what turns a brand into a legacy and what makes your brand human. According to Psychology Today, functional MRI neuroimagery shows that when evaluating brands, consumers primarily use emotions, so personal feelings and experiences, rather than information. And research conducted by the Advertising Research Foundation concluded that the emotion of likability is the measure most predictive as to whether or not an advertisement will increase a brand's sales. So it makes sense that if a reader or a follower understood who you are and what drives you, and your interesting backstory if you have one, they're more likely to remember your brand and feel a bit more of a connection to it. But here's the catch: your story has to actually be interesting. So while most clients want a big wow media piece straight off the bat when they come to me, you actually need to get some runs on the board first so a journalist can justify giving you that story. So here's a few examples of some bigger picture story ideas. And this case study is shared with permission. So Anthony Richardson is the founder of OzFit Torsion Bars, and he has a really good backstory. He was actually in the Navy for 11 years before taking a gap year. And to fill in his time in that year off, he decided to start a boot camp. And while he was doing the boot camp, he was using these metal bars that they used to use on the Navy ships called pump bars. It's basically a piece of steel that's about 20 kilos. He was using that as a piece of equipment, but it was really rusty after being on the ship. So he went to buy some more and found that there were no real bars, even though it seems like a simple thing, but there were no bars available to consumers. So he went about making his own, but he decided to make them better. So on the ships, like often they would roll down the deck and then the personnel could trip over them, potentially spraining their ankle, which isn't great if you're at sea for 6 months. So he put caps on the side to stop them rolling, and then he made them rust proof, and he made a few other additional amends to it. Since then, he's sold his army-inspired product back to, at last count, it was 5 militaries from around the world. He's done a workshop and sold them back to the Pentagon, and he's also sold them to the Norfolk Naval Base in America, which is the biggest naval base in the world. And his company's now worth millions. So there's several solid angles that I can use there, from his entrepreneurial success to the fact that he sold an army-related product back to the army, to the fact that he was, like, there's so many there. Like, there's his Navy story, there's how he got started, there's how he made a product better. However, he still needed to get runs on the board before anyone would touch that story. So we started by sharing product placement of the bar. So we send to all the health and fitness magazines so they can just put it in there as the new product to use. Then we started like pitching in workouts using all different personal trainers. Then we seeded the product to all of the best personal trainers, asked them to take photos and make a workout for us, which we then pitched to media because we don't like giving things to influencers and not leveraging it. Then we went to a whole bunch of athletes and who were all training for something. So we had them put together their training tips for whatever it is they're training for, and then we pitched that to media. And then of course we pitched some military inspired tips to tie in the military angle. So from here, it looked like every single important person was using Ozfit torsion bars in their workouts within the media. So that was absolutely flooded. It was absolutely flooded on social media. And then Anthony's story started to become of interest. So since then, he's been featured in Smart Company, he's been in AFR, news.com, he's had a big story in Men's Health. And this is all because he got runs on the board first. Similarly, Peter Schulman from Goodness Me Box started her business as a result of having an autoimmune condition which really affected her health. So she decided to go into the health and wellness space because it was something that benefited her because of her condition, but she could see that it's something that could benefit a lot of other people. In her first year, she made $1 million as well, or turned over $1 million. So here's two stories as well. We've got a human interest story of someone whose health hit rock bottom for her to make a change and get into the wellness space. But then we also have a business entrepreneurial success story. But again, Peter had to start by getting runs on the board. We seeded lots of influencers. She got a lot of media coverage about the box itself before people did stories on her. Also, you can share stories about other people, but as a disclaimer, other people being your clients, but as a disclaimer, don't ever pitch your client to the media without asking their permission, especially if it's a before and after weight loss photo, because not everyone wants to see themselves in their underwear on the front page of the newspaper. But anyway, we did a really, really good one for Sam Wood because one of his clients lost 45 kilos and she gave us permission and she wanted to be interviewed, sharing her journey and her learnings and everything. And it was such a powerful piece because these are called case studies, but case studies are so powerful because if you tap into an angle that other people are struggling with, so for example, weight loss, anxiety, even arthritis, like these are all things that a lot of Australians can identify with and struggle with. And you can give them actual tips and advice on how you can help them. Your story is going to resonate a lot more. So the best case studies, again, are the ones your audience can relate to, like I said. But my one piece of advice, if you use a case study, is make sure you interview them first, because a couple years ago, I got an amazing story on a current affair and I was going to put a lady on to be interviewed who I didn't realize until I interviewed her first that she was going to say that she was eating like a delivery food, like maybe a lean cuisine or something 3 days a week and only following my client's diet plan 4 days a week, which completely defeated the purpose because the whole purpose was that it was quick, easy, and something you can do at home. So thank God I didn't put her on TV. So always make sure you interview them first to make sure they're on board with your message. Strategy 3, content marketing. So as I mentioned before, a journalist may not run a major feature on you straight off the bat. And even when you start to get a few of them, you won't be getting them every day. But that doesn't mean that you still shouldn't be featured in the media regularly. And you can do that through content marketing. So content marketing is a major strategy for a lot of digital agencies, especially if they're trying to boost your Google ranking or your SEO. And it's also a very major strategy for my platform Expert Hub. So I'm going to dive into this a little bit because it's quite a powerful form of coverage. So much like editorial, content marketing is when the expert, as in you, pitches story ideas that are relevant to your business, product, or service to the media to share your expertise on them. So there's a twofold objective here. One is to show the publication's audience what you do and what they need you and that you're an expert in this area. And the other reason, if you're getting digital coverage, is to boost your SEO and your Google ranking. So if a journalist likes your story ideas that you put forward, they may ask you to write a guest post, or they may use you as the expert voice within the article that they turn around for you. So the benefit of content marketing is that it allows you to speak about a topic that is relevant to your business and what you're selling. So you're essentially educating your target audience on why they need you and why they may benefit from using your service. But please keep in mind that content marketing is not an ad. Your information needs to be interesting. Keep your brand mentions subtle, because the second you start mentioning too many of them, people then think they're being sold to and they won't keep reading. If they like the article and they're interested in what they said, trust me, they'll look for you. Content marketing is the time when readers and journalists are getting to know you. Then it's not the time for the hard sell. So when it comes to coming up with good story ideas, the first thing you should think of is, what is your objective and who are you trying to attract? So say you own a gym and you're trying to attract brand new members. You may pitch story ideas into the media like 5 reasons why women should weight train or how to build abs of steel. The thing is though that these story ideas are a little bit more advanced. So someone who already has a gym membership is probably likely to read them, which defeats the purpose of you getting new members. However, it is still a good angle to get out there because it positions you as an expert in the space. But say you're trying to attract a brand new member who is just starting out. A simple example of how to do this is to think of things that are topical to the public. So for example, most people think about starting on their weight loss journey on around New Year's. So New Year's resolutions, training for summer, training in winter, dry July, how to stay motivated all year round. But one thing that you should definitely consider is running season, because frankly, there are over 400 running events on Australia-wide. Some of them attract tens of thousands of runners. Not all of these people are super fit, but they may be wanting to head in that direction. Signing up for a fun run is a really good thing for someone to do if they're trying to get fit because it forces them to train and get into it. So now consider that we have thousands of people who have signed up for this run. Some of them don't know how to prepare. They don't know how to train. They don't know what to eat. They don't know how to recover. So if you were a gym, why wouldn't you pitch out the top 5 strength exercises that every runner should be doing to strengthen up the specifics and get the extra mile? If you're a nutritionist, how about something like how to fuel your run or the diet mistakes to avoid before a fun run? If you're a physio, the 5 common running injuries and how to avoid them. See, these types of people may not read an article about the 5 types of squats you should do in a gym, but by giving them information and angles that are relevant to them, you're showing them how you are relevant to them. So in addition to coming up with story ideas that are relevant to your target audience, you also need to make sure your story ideas are relevant to the publication's audience, because many products could actually have a variety of customers, but it's how you pitch it to them that will be the difference as to whether they take notice or not. So I'm going to use the example of a supplement company. There's a product called Hydroxyburn Neurothermogenic Shred. Now I can promise you, if I read an article on if I saw a headline on Body and Soul that says 5 reasons why you should use Hydroxyburn Neurothermogenic Shred, I can promise you I won't click on that. And the reason I won't click on it is because I'm busy and I'm bombarded by headlines all day and I don't know how that can help me. However, someone reading a muscle magazine who knows a little bit about supplements and knows that within that magazine that it's very possible the product will be relevant to them, you can go for that headline because these people are likely to be interested in that. If you're trying to attract me though, you're going to say something like, what's the difference between coffee and pre-workout, or which is better for your workout, coffee or pre-workout? Or supplement 101, what an active woman should be taking to get the most out of her workout. See, those are the sort of headlines I would read. And through those headlines, you can then weave in your product and tell me about your product. But that's the only way you're going to attract me to read it. Like, I'm not going to read something that I don't understand. So basically, when coming up with story ideas, you need to give someone something that they actually want to read. So think of who your target audience is. What are they interested in? What results do they want to get? And how could you help them? But remember how I said, so going back to the big picture story ideas, I've got 2 examples of clients. So I've worked with Fiona Tuck and Tegan Haining, and both of them started on Bennett PR, and they're both now on Expert Hub. So Tegan had never been featured in a very big capacity before in the media with regards to herself. When she was launching her program, the 7-Day Quickie, which is a 7-day little program that she launched. Anyway, we pitched her program into the Daily Mail, who ran it. And because she trained David Beckham when she lived in London, that's kind of the angle. So it was David Beckham's trainer teaches you how to do this. So the Daily Mail ran it, and then Channel 9 saw it, and then Channel 9 invited her onto the show, and then Penguin saw it, and then she got a book deal. Similarly, there's a nutritionist called Fiona Tuck who we worked with, and she was a dream. Every Monday I'd come in and she would just have a list of topics that she wanted to talk about. And these topics weren't necessarily about her. She's a nutritionist. She wanted to myth bust the things that everyone was talking about. Everyone loved her because she had such a range of things to talk about that it was all kind of on the myth busting path. Anyway, from there, she ended up becoming one of the most regular TV people because she was constantly sharing advice and then seemed to be an expert. So keep that in mind when it comes to media. It's not just about getting a story on you, it's about sharing what you know, because if you're seen to be interesting and you're seen to be someone who can comment, that's when you're going to get TV and other opportunities like that. So strategy 4 for me would be events. And while events can be a little bit more expensive, if executed well, they can be very, very powerful for not only getting a blast of coverage across traditional social and online media, but they're also a great way of building relationships with journalists and influencers by having a chance to have some FaceTime with them. And it's also a really good opportunity to build content for not only you, but for all of your guests. Some of my absolute favorite events that I've had the chance to work on are the Flow After Dark Silent Yoga Disco and the Goodness Me Box night markets. And the reason why I really liked these events is because they had an interesting activity, but they also had a lot of really good photographic moments. See, the things that we need to remember these days is social media is a very cluttered space. Like, everyone is an influencer now. And as a result, it's a little bit harder to get some cut through and to get people to notice. So if you have an event and you have some sort of photo moment at the event that everyone kind of takes a photo of, it's a lot more likely that the followers will scroll and they'll see something a few times, and then you might get them to stop because they can see that something is actually happening. At the same time, when I start inviting journalists to events, even if they can't come, they often want to write about it because they know there's going to be a bit of a buzz about it shortly. So you're more likely to get an influx of coverage. The research says that someone needs to see your brand between anywhere from like 8 to 17 times before they buy it. So an event is a really good way of getting similar people there with a similar audience to get those views up so you can start getting that traction. But the thing about events is you don't want to blow the money and the time on them for nothing. So make sure you've got a game plan in place to achieve your objective. If I were to assume that your objective is to get both media and social media coverage, here would be my tips. So pre-event, if your event is a paid ticketed event for consumers, in addition to allowing media to come for free, because we don't charge media to come to events, leave enough time to create awareness about the event so the consumers can buy tickets. So with Flow After Dark, for example, 3 months ahead, we'd go to the monthly print publications, because keep in mind that everything has a different lead time. So a monthly magazine usually works 3 months ahead. A weekly magazine is 4 to 6 weeks ahead, and online run whenever they want to run. So usually I'd pitch to the print magazines early, and if they don't want to run it as an event, then what I would do is I'd pitch in a story idea. So with Flow After Dark, for example, I might do a story on the benefits of yoga and sound therapy for office workers, and then I'd send that to the likes of Marie Claire, because lots of corporates read Marie Claire, so it's relevant. I've also achieved that before with Sunrise. Sunrise don't usually run like events, but they did run a story on men in yoga, and they had Kate Kendall, who's the face of Flow After Dark, as the lead on the story, and they used some background footage of Flow After Dark and mentioned Flow After Dark. So again, content marketing works well in terms of weaving events in. You would also then go a bit later, so maybe like 6 weeks ahead, you'd go to like all of the What's On publications, so the Urban List, Broadsheet, Concrete Playground, because again, these people are looking for things to do. Make sure people are aware of your social media handle and your hashtags in advance, because obviously you're going to lose the opportunity if they don't know what to tag. And keep in mind that events often have a 20% drop-off rate, so always over-invite. If I want 50 people, I invite 70. I don't invite 70, I have 70 on my RSVP list, importantly. So at the event day is mainly about social coverage and building relationships, while it's pre and post event that you'll focus on the media coverage. Social media is a very busy and cluttered space, so if you want to be noticed, I suggest making sure you have a few obvious moments at your event so guests are posting similar pictures and therefore their followers have more of a chance of noticing that something is happening. Those moments don't necessarily have to have branding on them, but branding is nice. So for example, if the event is at your own studio, try to have a wall where everyone gets a photo in front of it. So for example, Flow Athletic have Be Your Own Hero, Zadi have the big Z, F45 have the big F45 banner, and 12 Round Fitness has a big photo of Danny Green. if your event is off-site, try and have something pretty. While a media wall works, it's very Formula One. Like, it doesn't really go with a lot of influencers' strategies in terms of like the look and feel of what they want their Instagram to look like. So I'd more suggest, like, Goodness Me Box had the giant GMB letters, which were beautiful, and Q83 had an amazing flower wall. So I'd probably look at that. Make sure you have a photographer. While you would expect your influencer guests to take their own photos, they may be too busy having fun to take really good photos that they might actually put on their wall. So I always brief my photographers to take photos that people will actually post to their wall. And that is like, for the social pages, you need 2 to 3 people full body like this, and some influencers will run that. Otherwise, if they're doing a workout or something, get photos of each one as the focus, looking good, so they'll post it. And make sure your event looks nice and speaks to your brand as well. Post-event, to the journalists, I always send them a thank you with the images, and I'll send them 5 to 6 story ideas to try and convert the coverage if they haven't done a story already. And to the influencers, I always send them a link with the pictures and the hashtags. So again, events are a very good way to make a lot of noise in a short period of time, especially on social media when a one-off post is likely to get lost, but 100 posts in front of a similar audience is more likely to be seen. Strategy 5, influencers. So there's a lot of ways to work with influencers that a lot of people have discounted because they're too busy looking at the overall following. The truth of the matter is, especially if your business is local, the bikini girl with 1 million followers may get you less traction than the local girl with 20 real friends. But it really depends on your objective and what you're trying to achieve. So here are some ways that I like to use influencers. The first one is obvious. Invite them in for a workout, invite them in for a treatment, send them your product, ask them to post, or pay them to post. If I'm paying an influencer anything, I always like to look at their Q83, so Q-83. And basically what that will do is it will tell you where their audience are based, how engaged they are. It will tell you who's watching their stories, who's clicking through, who's clicking back. Gives you all that information, but most importantly, it tells you what their best performing posts are, and then that way you can brief the influencer to do something similar that you know their audience will connect with. If the influencer is a celebrity and they get featured in the media a lot and you just want to be related to them, it does not matter about their following or their audience. Like, as long as you can say, like, if you're in news.com or whatever, you know, I'm the trainer of Jacinta Campbell or something like that, that's enough. You can invite her in, that's absolutely fine. When I used to work with a sports supplement brand, I wanted to attract all of the personal trainers and athletes to like the product. So I engaged a personal trainer who I knew they all looked to because he was doing a lot of stuff. So at the time, the guy who I engaged was training for a 250-kilometer run through the desert, and he was training for a triathlon, and he had just done like this smaller endurance event TV show, but he had a lot of angles for me. So I engaged him, I pitched his story everywhere, like he was absolutely everywhere, and all the other trainers were taking notice of him because they were like, where did this guy come from? So anyway, I ended up getting about 15 other trainers for free who wanted to work with the brand, and I would give them product and they would post it for me, but then I'd also pitch them to media, and they got free media coverage from me, so they didn't have to pay, but it looked like my client was being talked about by everyone. So this is a really good strategy. Like, if you can subtly weave product into what someone's already doing, like if you see someone doing something cool that's relevant to your brand or could be relevant to the training of your brand, reach out to them and offer to share their story in exchange for product, because it's a win-win. As mentioned before, influencers need content. So one of my favorite things that I like to do is set up an influencer day for my clients, whether it's video or photo. And the influencers can come in and they can get 30 minutes each, and they can shoot whatever they want as long as my client's involved. The objective of these is to give the influencers content that they will post mentioning my brand. It's gotten me years of leverage, especially with the one that we did for OzFit Torsion Bars, because the photos were so good that people still share them. And if you don't have a space and instead your brand is product based, there's still things you can do, because what I'm saying with a lot of these things is it's good to have uniform sort of photos that people can recognize, because that way they'll notice it. For example, one of the best ones was Frank Body, where it's a coffee scrub, and they had a big campaign where they paid a bunch of big influencers, but the campaign went so well that then everyone else just wanted to be involved, so they did it for free product. But they had everyone kind of in the shower, covered in the coffee scrub, like doing something, saying, you know, getting down and dirty with Frank or something like that. And it was a really cheeky, cool campaign that everyone just wanted to be involved with. There was also the Adidas hoodie campaign, which they started with a lot of their big athletes that then everyone was interested in, which was basically just a white hoodie, and everyone, I think from memory, was shooting in black and white, but everyone wanted to be involved. It created so much buzz. So these are just a few examples of how I would use the influencers or do the media, get media coverage in general. But, you know, get creative. Like, PR can be fun, brand messaging can be fun, think outside the box. So in summary, the main reasons why you want to be featured in the media, in addition to building your brand recognition and credibility, are: if you're an expert in your field, it gives you the added credibility that is often needed if a brand is looking to engage an expert or an ambassador to work with. If you're doing something cool like Flow After Dark, it's a good way to highlight how innovative you are. If you're ever looking for investors, being able to show that you're media worthy may be the difference between whether they want to work with you or not. If Body and Soul or the like was running a story on the 5 best protein powders, and you own a protein company, of course you would want to be featured. And when you are featured in an online publication with a link back to your site, it helps to boost your SEO and Google ranking. And for potential customers, if they type your business into Google and they see a whole bunch of articles come up under your business name, it looks really good for credibility. So finally, be careful with the way that you give advice. If you are providing advice that could end up being damaging for someone if followed incorrectly, such as you are a GP, a financial advisor, or a surgeon, for example, please make sure you understand the rules of your governing body in terms of what you can and cannot say, as we do not need another Mel Gibson situation. Also, it's not advised that you diss your competition. I see it a lot, especially in the wellness industry. It doesn't make you look good. Show what you are doing well. You don't have to show what other people are not doing well. So that's all. I hope that's helped you guys. If you want to get in touch with me, my email is brittany@bennettpr.com.au, brittany@bennettpr.com.au. And yeah, again, have a think on these. If you've got any questions or comments, let me know. And we have the Expert Hub platform, which basically connects experts with journalists for a fraction of the price, if that's something you would be interested in. Thanks again.